To start this block off, you are going to take your two larger squares. One is the background and one is one of the colors for the tulip. And you are going to sew all the way around all four sides, leaving a 1/4 inch seam. So now that I have all four sides are sewn, I'm going to cut this in half diagonally twice from corner to corner. So I'm just going to line my ruler up with the corner and cut that. And if you have a rotating mat, that's great. If not, just kind of pivot your ruler and cut a second time from corner to corner. And then you're going to open these up and press them. So now that I have my pieces sewn, my half square triangles, I can go ahead and press them. I'm using the Steady Betty. It's really a great tool to have. Your pieces don't get stretched. All right. So now I'm going to square these blocks up. For squaring up, I'm using my block lock ruler. I love this. Makes it super quick and simple to do. Then we're going to repeat that for all the blocks. For our next step, we're going to take our background kind of medium squares, and on the wrong sides of them, we're going to draw a line from corner to corner with just like a mechanical pencil, disappearing ink, something that just marks them. This is going to be our sewing line, so I'm going to be following that, make sure it's pretty accurate. Okay, so for this next step, we are going to take our tulip rectangle color and lay one of these blocks on top, and then we're going to stitch it from corner to corner right on top of that diagonal line. If you would like, you can mark another line 1/2 inch from that first line and stitch on this line as well, and you will get a secondary half square triangles that we won't be using. All right, once you have them sewn and you have stitched on that drawn line, and maybe you've taken that extra stitch or seam, I just want you to cut a 1/4 inch from that drawn line out, and then set that aside for another project or maybe the back of the quilt. So I'm going to cut again. So this is a 1/4 inch past your drawn line, because if you remember, your drawn line is what you are stitching on. So now we can press these. All right, now that they're all pressed, what we can do now is lay the block out. So we've got 4 blocks that we're sewing together. So I'm just going to lay all 4 blocks right on top of each other in their place. And then I'm going to gather my other pieces, put them in their place. And I've got my other little yellow squares. And then I have my background. So the first thing we're going to do is sew one of our tulip pieces to our background squares. Now that I have those sewn, I'm going to press them open. Just going to set that aside for a quick minute. I'm going to press it to the dark. You see, usually, because you kind of want to hide that seam behind the darker fabric. All right, now that we have it pressed, we're going to put it back in its place, and we're going to sew either the background to this piece or the half square triangle on the bottom. I'm just going to sew the backgrounds. You're going to line them up on the sides and then pin them if you need before sewing. Okay, once we have these sewn, we're going to press them as well. Just to help keep everything straight. All right, now what we can do is go ahead and sew that section to the bottom of the tulip piece. Again, you're going to line up the sides and pin if you need, and you just need to make sure that the background and the tulip square is in the correct place. Okay, once this is sewn, you will want to give that a good press before sewing the last piece to the side. So before we get started sewing these blocks together, we are going to just trim these blocks down just a little bit to make sure that they are the correct length. When you add this half square triangle on, sometimes they get a little bit misshapen, so we just need to make sure that they are put back to the right size before moving forward. If you do need to do any additional squaring up on this end with the half square triangle side, that is just fine as well. There's a little bit of ease or so flexibility. All right, so now that we have the correct size for everything, we can go ahead and sew these two pieces together. And we're just going to do the same. We're going to line up the ends, pin them if you need, and sew those two sections together. All right, so now that we are all done, we are just going to give this a good press if you need to use some spray starch or whatever. And then we just need to make sure that the block is the right size. And if you need to do any trimming or squaring up, you need to do that prior to putting it into the quilt. So once this is finished, you need to measure it out and then give it a little bit of trim if you need, depending on what this pattern requires. So that is our tulip block, and we are all finished and ready for the next